So with Deebo Samuel expected to be traded this upcoming offseason, D'Amico Ryans was asked about his availability, and he had this to say: always interested in good players, and he's a good player. Now, the Texans GM also said recently that they're interested in bringing back Stephon Diggs. So regardless, it looks like they're definitely going to add another wide receiver for CJ Stroud and that offense. Now, as far as Deebo going to the Houston Texans, I like it. I definitely like it. And it would definitely fit the pattern that they've been doing at least the last year. You know, they acquired Joe Mixon. A lot of people thought he was kind of past his prime, but for the most part, he looked really, really, really good in his first year with the Houston Texans. So who knows, maybe they could have the same sort of success with Deebo Samuel for this upcoming year. And, you know, definitely makes a lot of sense for the Niners to move off of Deebo. It is reported that they just begun contract negotiations with Brock Purdy, so they need all the money they can possibly come up with. And Deebo is definitely past his prime. Deebo definitely has a long injury history, but I like this because the Texans are right there. You know, they played the Chiefs pretty competitively in the divisional round this past season, and they're close. I feel like they're close to making an AFC Championship appearance, and I think Deebo Samuel could definitely help them out. I would imagine that he probably has 2 more good years at most of being a productive player in the NFL, and that's the thing about Deebo potentially going to the Houston Texans. He doesn't need to be a star player on a weekly basis. If he could just have a good game every third or every other game, I feel like the Texans would be okay with that, because realistically, they don't need him to be a star on that offense. Like I mentioned, they have Joe Mixon, they have Nico Collins. They don't really need Deebo to go all the way off. If Deebo could just go there and just complement their games, I feel like it could work out really, really well. And we're still not sure if Tank Dell will come back for this upcoming year, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But you let me know if you're a Texans fan. Would you rather bring in Deebo Samuel or bring back Stephon Diggs? Let me know in the comments below. And that's the thing about Stephon Diggs. That's not really a bad option too. It seemed like he fit in pretty well with the locker room in Houston. D'Amico Ryans, I feel like, maybe kept him in check. But then again, you know, if you take a look at Stephon Diggs throughout his career, usually the first couple of years on a new team, he behaves, and then by year 3, year 4, it usually goes off the rails, like it did in Buffalo and in Minnesota. So it might still just be the honeymoon effect with Stephon Diggs and the Houston Texans, but you know, if you bring him back for like a 1-year, $5 million contract, or like some sort of just like cheap deal 1-year contract, I would like that move a lot for the Texans. But you let me know what you think. Speaking of the San Francisco 49ers, even though Brandon Ayuk signed that huge deal last offseason, teams are checking in on his availability to see if the Niners are willing to part ways with him. And, you know, from the Niners' perspective, I definitely think they should move on from Brandon Ayuk. That contract was a huge mistake, and when he came back and played for them, he looked pretty awful. He attributed his poor play to missing training camp and all those reps and stuff, but like, bro, like, that's your responsibility. If you're gonna hold out, if you're gonna be unprofessional and like really hold your team back, like, it's your responsibility to stay active, to stay in shape, to stay ready, so when you do get a deal done, you don't look like a complete bum out there. And before he got injured, he looked like a complete bum out there. A lot of drop balls, and like I said, the Niners need a lot of money to sign Brock Purdy. There are some reports saying it's going to be a contract worth 50, 60 mil a year, which is crazy. So if they're really going to go down that road, I would definitely recommend them moving off Ayuk. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe the Texans will be interested. Not sure. But definitely keep an eye on Brandon Ayuk. Last year, when the contract negotiations seemed to kind of reach a breaking point, it was reported that the Patriots were very interested in acquiring him. So I expect the Patriots to be interested in Ayuk again, but we'll have to see how all that plays out. Let me know what you would do if you were John Lynch. Would you trade him? Would you keep him? And where would you like to see Brandon Ayuk go if you do want to see him traded? Curious to hear your opinion. And I'm curious too, whatever team you're a fan of, would you want your team to acquire Deebo Samuel this upcoming offseason? You would probably have to give up a third or maybe a fourth, and you would have to take on his contract and everything that comes with him, his kind of antics and whatnot. Let me know. I'm very curious about that because I'm a Broncos fan, and a report just came out from Chris Thompson that the Broncos aren't expected to have trade interest in Deebo Samuel. And I'm very, very happy to hear that because we don't need another wide receiver. And even if we did, I wouldn't be interested in acquiring Deebo Samuel. I don't know. Like, if he was still in his prime, sure, absolutely. Like, even if he still acts like a clown and a big distraction, then fine. I'd be okay with him going to the Broncos. But he's past his prime, still has a lot of antics, and his contract currently isn't a cheap one. Plus, you'd have to give up a draft pick as well. So I'm definitely happy they're not interested. And that's the thing too, man. It's going to be interesting to see what his market is really like and what the Niners will actually get back for him. Because I swear, the past 4 or 5 years, every NFL draft that has gone by, the wide receiver classes have just been so deep. It doesn't matter if you draft or take a wide receiver in the 5th round, the 4th round, or the 1st. There's studs everywhere, and I would just rather address the wide receiver position in the draft than take on a guy like Deebo Samuel, but that's just me. But yeah, man, let me know what you think about this news. Do you think he'll be a Houston Texan, or where do you think he'll end up? If you made this far, please subscribe and like the vid. It would help out your boy a ton. That's all I got for right now. Peace.
That's a wonderful job that time by the secondary. Everybody's in position, nowhere for the quarterback to throw the football, and it leads to another incomplete pass. The kick is good. So for Phil Simms and all the crew at EA Sports, Jim Nance saying so long for now.